Today is September the 24th, 2020, and my name is Tanya Finchum. I'm with Oklahoma State University with the Oral History program in the library. And with me today is Shynika Allison, the sister of Dan Lawson, and we'll explain that in just a minute. This interview, which has been recorded on Zoom, will be part of the We Will Remember Promise Oral History Project. And a little context from that, January 27th, 2001, a plane crashed carrying 10 men associated with the OSU men's basketball program, and a promise was made at that time to always remember those who were lost. And Dan Lawson was one of the athletes on board of that plane that day, and he was a 21-year-old junior guard from Michigan, and his sister's going to be here today to share a little bit of a few memories about Dan, and we'll just see what we can learn and go from there. So thank you. And let's start with having you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about background on your family.
Well, about myself, I have 4 kids, one that I have biologically, and 3 stepchildren, which are my babies too. So 4 kids. My husband and I have been married about 8 years now. And it's a different life without having my brother and my mom. But, you know, it's definitely God keeping me. So we are a happy family. We praise the Lord, of course. We are a Christian family. We are a loving family. We just love family, so we're always having family around us.
And dealing with COVID as best you can?
Oh, yes. So COVID has not been easy, but, you know, I could say that we're blessed. You know, even though we've had everything with COVID happen, it's just been good being around family. Okay. My husband and I, my kids, they're all older now. My youngest just went off to college as well. So it's different. My husband and I here alone and everything, but it's been fun. The kids will come by. We'll have bonfires and things like that. Just enjoying family. So no, COVID hasn't stopped anything.
Okay. Well, then tell us a little bit about your childhood family and where you are. I think you're your younger sister, right?
Yes, I am the youngest
about
of
that.
5. I have an older sister. Her name is Karen. She's 18 years older than me. Then I have 2 brothers that are still alive, Eric and Austin. They are 17 and 16 years older than me. Okay. And Danny was my, I would say we were the closest out of everyone because he was only 4 years older than me. So okay. We shared the same room for 11 years, you know, so we were like best friends, needless to say. Man. We were like Bonnie and Clyde together. Everything we did together, you know. So, yeah, it was definitely like a hole in my life when he left because it was just, I didn't know how to do it without him, you know. So, but we're all close. We're close siblings and everything. Like my brother Austin, we talk every morning. We call each other for prayer every morning. And so we're just a close-knit family. We always have been. My mom, oh my gosh, she was like a light in our family, you know, like she's very spiritual. Oh my gosh, she was like one of the best moms because everybody wanted to call her mom. Like no matter who came to the house, everybody thought she was mom. That was it. We both had a lot of friends. My brother more because he was on the basketball team, of course, all throughout my life. So he would have friends coming in and out, and everyone, like right now, for instance, I call him my brother, but he's not my biological brother. He was my brother Danny's best friend. He's here from out of town staying with me, and it's like he's my brother. There's nothing else I could call him. But like that's how close everyone was with my mom. She was a joy, man. She was just, I strive to be the type of mom she was, very opening and inviting to everyone, she was like, she would talk to all of us as if we were the same, no love difference or anything like that. I can't say, oh, I feel like my mom loved this kid more or whatever else. Like it was equal. And she just had so much love to give that it was amazing. Even like up until the time when she was dying, because she died from multiple myeloma. And I took care of her until the day she died. And even then, like, no matter how much pain she was in, because like she broke her femur, both her humerus, her spine was fractured, and both femurs actually. So even with that, she would still smile, and she'd do her little shoulder dance, and she was like, I'm blessed. And so it's like, literally, we couldn't have had a better mom. So she just raised her kids differently, and we just all love one another. So yes, it's been different not having my brother Danny and having my mom, but I will say that I'm still blessed.
Was he the typical big brother and looked after you during high school?
Gosh, yes, he was. So he died my 12th grade year, and so I went to his high school, and I had the same locker he had, and everything, because he had put his name in the locker. But I got a lot of privileges because of him, I will say that. The school, they were, they called him Dlaw back then. So they said, oh, this Dlaw, little sister, so everyone protected me. Everyone took care of me and everything like that. I had a lot of older brothers at school, so I couldn't get away with anything, by the way. But yeah, he was definitely protective. He was the type of brother where he would say something nice, but then follow it up with one of the going jokes that we had. He'd like, I love you with your little ugly butt, or something like that. But he was just that big brother. He was amazing. We were best friends. It's like, I miss him. And it's like, sometimes I'll forget his voice and it'll hurt me because I just, I miss him.
Mm-hmm.
I miss him. So I used to have a recording that he did at Oklahoma. He did a recording for his entomology class, and I can't find it anywhere. We've moved so many times since then, and now I have my own home and everything, but so I can't find it. And I asked a few of the players if they had it, but they didn't. So yeah, I wish I could find that tape, because it would be nice to see him talking and just smiling and everything like that. So yeah, he was an amazing big brother.
Did he have a favorite subject in high school? What was he?
If it was a favorite, it would definitely have been, you know, like anything physical. He loved basketball.
Well,
When I, huh?
how had he gotten interested in basketball?
Oh man.
Do you know? Do you know how that happened?
When he was little, we actually have pictures of him when he was like 2 years old, 1 year old, still in diapers, playing basketball.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
he had a little basketball, and my mom had put a little hoop up, and he couldn't have been very tall at all, but he had his little basketball, and we got a picture of him like trying to shoot the ball. So yeah, no, he's had that love since he was little.
For a long time.
My two older brothers were there watching over him, so you know they were into football, and so when he was younger, he actually played football too. But he just always had a love for basketball, so he ended up getting involved with some basketball teams and with PAL and stuff like that. And that's pretty much how he got started.
And for high school, he was on, I'm assuming he was on the team, of course.
Yes.
Basketball team. What was his number in high school?
Oh,
do you remember?
High school, I want to say, oh gosh, what was his number? I actually have a picture of him.
I know here it was number here it was 3, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was 30 if I'm not mistaken. But I can't say for certain. I can't remember. I'm picturing in my head his picture, and I can't remember the number. Oh,
that's okay. Did he enjoy practice?
Oh, yes. Their coach in high school was a character, to say the least. So he would often at times like make it hard for them, but he definitely, he loved basketball. So that was his thing. He enjoyed it. I remember us picking him up sometimes late at night for basketball practice and games and stuff like that. And it was funny because he would have all this sweat dripping, and he would get in the car, and we're like, "Oh gosh, you stink." now that I'm older and I have my own children, I'm like, "Geez, like it continues." So yeah, he enjoyed it all.
Did he have a favorite NBA player?
Growing up, it was Jalen Rose, and I actually named my son Jalen as like an ode to that, you know. And so, Jalen Rose was one of them.
And his team, the Pistons. Did he follow the Pistons? Yes,
he followed the Pistons. Chris Webber and all those guys back then, he talked about often, and Jordan, of course, you know.
Yeah, he would have been that time.
Talk about Jordan. I know when we were younger, because my older brothers and sisters, they were from a different dad. So their dad's last name was Jordan. So he used to tease his friend and say, "Oh, we're related to Michael Jordan." And it's like, no, we're not. And he would actually tell them that. It was the funniest thing ever. But yeah, he loved his basketball.
Sounds like he had a good sense of humor.
Oh my
as well.
God, did he ever? He surely did. He was always making people laugh. He was a goofball. That was just what he was. He was a goofball. He had the brightest smile, and he was just, everyone just loved him.
Did he also do practical jokes and prankster, or just more funny?
No, just more funny.
More funny.
Definitely just more funny. He had this thing where he would tease me, and he would say that I didn't have, like, he would say I was too short and stuff. So he would make up little songs and stuff about me being short and just teasing me and playing with me like that. So he was just, he was that guy who talked a lot of smack. And his friend that's here, he and I were actually talking one time, and actually just recently, and we were talking about how when they used to go and play basketball and everything, my brother would be talking a whole bunch of smack towards the other players and stuff, and roasting. They call it roasting, where you crack jokes on one another. He would always be doing stuff like that. He's just a goofball.
Did anything ever get him down, or was it mostly upbeat?
He was mostly upbeat, but I will say that he was down, like his last year playing with Oklahoma. He wasn't in the best mood. He was really sad, and he wanted to come home. He was like, yo, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to come home. And I was like, well, what's wrong? And he told me how the coach had taken him. He wanted him to cut his hair. And my brother's like, no, I don't want to cut my hair. So he took him, and he said it was in the middle of the night. He said it was dark, and he took him out to the middle of like a highway and made him run home. And so he was like that he ran home, and people were like, it's not the best culture there in Oklahoma sometimes. Before people would see who he was, they would be like yelling out racial slurs or different things like that. But then he was like, then they would see who he is. Then they were like, oh, let me give you a ride. And he's like, I don't want to get in your car. You just was saying horrible stuff to me, But I think he was tired of that. He wanted to come home. He said it often when I was talking to him. He missed home. And it wasn't the best situation with the coach. So he was ready to come home.
It was a culture shock, I would think, from Detroit to Stillwater.
Oh, yeah.
Considerable difference.
He was used to it. He played all over the place, so he was used to that. And our family is really mixed. So, but Oklahoma definitely was something else, because I came there to visit, and I was like, oh, this is like, I felt like we were in the backwoods or something. Like, this is not the city. So,
well, did he say he would come before he'd actually visited? Do you know?
No, he never said he was going to come to Oklahoma before. That was just, are you asking if he said he would visit Oklahoma prior to?
Had he come to campus before he decided to actually?
Yes. They sent
make the switch.
Yeah, they did send for him to come out to Oklahoma, and he did go to campus and he looked around, and he made this decision. Colorado was interested in him. University of Detroit Mercy was interested in him. He had a slew of colleges that were actually wanted him, but he chose Oklahoma.
Do you know why?
He said that when he got there, they definitely did a lot to capture him. They were pulling out all the stops and things of that sort to show him, like, we want you. And then his coach that he was with at Mott Community College, Coach, I think it's Schmidt, he wanted him to go to Oklahoma. So then he went ahead and went. Yeah.
Okay. That's did he come when he moved here? Did family come with him, or did he come by himself?
He came by himself. Yeah. Okay. I know that my brother Eric had went out there a couple times to visit him. So yeah, we didn't necessarily have the funds to be able to go and visit him on a regular basis or anything like that. So my brother Eric, he was in the Army, so he did.
So you got to see him on TV occasionally?
Oh, yes. Occasionally. We watched all his games, and he would call me every time they had a game. Whenever he was on his way home, he would actually give me a call, like after they landed from the plane and they were on the bus traveling back to back to school, or if they took a bus somewhere and were on the almost home, he would call me, and that was like his way of letting me know he was okay. So he would just call me, and he would have all of his friends in the background, and they would be like, "Oh man, your sister's so cool," because like he would say goofy stuff like, "Shy, how many girls I got back at home?" And I'm like, 100. So it would end up being like something like that, just to joke around. And he was a good guy. He was just a really good guy.
And who was his roommate when he first came?
If I'm not mistaken, it was Nate. I think Nate was one of his roommates, and Andre, him and Andre, they moved in together. They had an apartment. I think it was him, Andre, and Big Show, Antoine. I had to think of, because I only call him Big Show, so I had to think of his name. So yeah, it was him, Andre, and Big Show that I believe had an apartment together.
Well, it has been 20 years, so
yes.
Yeah, I'm impressed you can remember that much.
Yeah. Well, I still keep in touch with Big Show, and Andre calls periodically, and I just recently seen, Ikpa, his last name, Guy Ikpa. He's on that team as well. So I just recently seen him and Big Show and TC, Terrence, I think it's Collier.
Or Crawford.
Crawford. Yeah, there you go. Terrence Crawford. I'm sorry. I know someone named Collier from high school. But yeah, Terrence Crawford. I keep in touch with all of them. TC, he calls me on a regular basis. I know I got to meet his kids and his wife, and my brother's girlfriend at the time was Suri. She played for, I think it was either soccer or volleyball. So I still talk to her periodically. So yeah, we all keep in touch. I could tell the ones that were really close to him, because then they reach out and just see how I'm doing or whatever else.
Would they share stories?
Yes. Yes, they did. They definitely did.
Any particular one come to mind?
Well, Guy and TC were telling me the last time I was with them, I think it was just a few months ago. It was either, I want to say it was last summer we met up, and they were telling me about how they used to play bumper cars with their actual cars. And so they said, just doing stupid stuff. And they said that Danny ran into the back of TC's car real hard and left the side of his car. Instead of it being the back of the car, he ran into the side of his car and left a dent there. And they were just laughing and joking about it. And I'm just like, it's like, they're so stupid. Why would they do that? But they definitely told me a lot of stories. Just a lot. They were also goofballs.
Well, I know being a student athlete, it takes up a lot of time.
Oh yeah.
Practicing games and then studies too. So you have to have time for a little fun.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
What was his major?
He was in sociology. So
what did he plan to do with that?
He wanted to help out athletes, just be like a resource for athletes, and help them out with like the mental capacity and everything like that. So yeah, he had goals. And then I know that the NBA was looking at him. So I know that was something else that he was going to do as well. So Desmond Mason was a real good friend for him at that time, and Desmond was playing for the Seattle Sonics, I think it was. And so I know that some teams were looking at him because of that as well. So Yeah, he definitely had a lot of goals.
I understand he was a pretty good student too.
Oh yeah.
He worked hard at his grades.
Yes, he was. He was just an overall good person. We had quite a few people call us after he passed. And like I guess a young lady, she had some, how can I say, she had like some learning disabilities, and I guess some kids was bothering her, and so my brother kind of saved her from it. And so she still to this day, she'll like send me a message, how are you doing, how's your mom? And I told her, recently, like, oh, my mom passed, and she was hurt from that. But yeah, and then we had kids sending us stuff after he passed. I guess one time they were at a restaurant, and my brother had wrote on a napkin and had drew something on a napkin for him, and had signed his autograph and everything. And the little boy ended up sending it to us. And he was like, your brother was so nice. He would play on the court after the game. He would play with the kids on the court. He loved kids too. Oh gosh, he loved kids. He was just an overall good guy. He was a joy to be around. That's for certain. So
my husband actually had him in class that semester.
Oh, you did?
And it was an early morning class, and he said Danny was always there, maybe in his lounge pants, but he was there, and he was a good kid.
He was.
Yeah, and he still he senses his presence every time he's in that particular classroom. So,
that's nice.
So that's been a long time too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he was just a joy to have around. I can't describe it any other way. It's hard not seeing him.
And so let's transition into that awful day.
Yeah.
How did you all learn about the crash?
So Andre and Big Show called us. My mom and I just got in the house not long before then, and I was sitting in my room on the phone, and either Andre or Big Show called my brother, and then my brother called us. And at the time, I was just sitting on my bed. My brother called, and he was like, I need you to get Mom. And I was like, okay. So I called my mom into the room. She sat in a chair near my bed. And he was like, I need you to give Mom the phone and tell her to have a seat. So I told her to have a seat. And she sat down. I gave her the phone. And she just started, like, it's this scream that I can't get out of my head that she let out. And it was just, it was piercing. So she screamed, and she kind of like fell out of the chair. And I picked up the phone, and I'm like, what is wrong? What happened? And he told me, Danny's gone. And I was like, come again? I was just on the phone with him. Like, he called me right before he got on the plane, like he would normally do. And he sounded, it's like he sounded as if he knew something was going to happen. So he sounded down when I talked to him. And so when my brother told me, oh, he's gone. And I'm like, no, I just talked to him. That's not possible. The plane crashed. And I'm like, no, it didn't, and I lost it. It was hard because It was hard, definitely, because I didn't believe it at first.
Mm-hmm.
So for a while, I would call his phone, and Big Show had put his number onto his phone. So when I would call, I would still hear his voicemail, and I would just listen to the voice over and over and over. And one day Big Show was like, Shy, you got to stop doing this to yourself. Because I had in my head, he was a little disoriented from the crash, and he was going to come walking up one day and say, oh man, had amnesia or something. And it's like, oh yeah, I was really alive all this time, and I actually would have dreams about that too. But yeah, it was definitely one of those moments that you can't forget. But like I said, I just talked to him on the phone, and I was waiting for his call once he lands, and when he's on the bus ride. When he had called right before he got on the plane, he said, he was like, hey, Shy, and I'm like, hey, how's everything going? And I was like, we were talking about the game for a second, and he was just not himself. And I was like, what's wrong? And he was like, I'm just ready to come home. And I said to him, you'll be home soon enough, because the holidays was, and he was like, well, he was like, I don't know, Shy. And he was like, I just wanted to call you and tell you I love you. Mm-hmm. And it was like the way he said it, it was like we were saying goodbye or something. And I remember saying to him, like, well, what's wrong? Like, just talk to me. You sound so down. What's going on? And he's like, I'm just ready to come home. And I feel so bad. For a long time, I felt bad. I felt like it was my fault, because he was supposed to come home that Christmas, but my mom could only afford to send for one of us, and I was staying with my sister in Texas. So I took his flight home. And so I felt so horrible. So it's like, he wanted to come home and everything. And after he said he loved me, he didn't follow it up with one of those jokes, So it was just different. So when I got off the phone with him, it was like a real eerie type feeling that I had. And it just, it was like our goodbye. And then apparently when they were crashing, I received a phone call, and it was like a voice message, and you could hear people screaming. So, I don't know. It was just, it was one of those days. Yeah, and I was not doing well after that. That night, I actually attempted suicide. It was just really rough. I was only 17. So, as 17-year-old losing her best friend, and it was just hard. My mom found me with pills, and, but yeah, it was hard.
How did you cope? I mean, how did you find a way out of that?
It was hard.
I guess faith may have played a role.
Yeah, big time. Faith had a lot to do with it. My mom kept us in a church, so faith had a whole lot to do with it. I'm sorry, give me a second.
That's okay.
But yeah, no, faith definitely had a big part in it.
Well, then following that up, you had to come to the memorial, or were you here in Stillwater for the memorial?
Yeah, I was. I didn't want to go because I was mad at the coach. Sorry.
That's okay.
But I didn't want to go. I was mad at the coach because he knew my brother was afraid of those small propeller planes. And he put him on there on purpose. He chose him. And he would just do stuff like that to him. You know, my brother had expressed to him before that he was afraid of those planes. And the coach put him on there anyway. And there was no real reason for it, you know. There was still room on the team player's plane. And, you know, the coach didn't even call us to tell us that the plane crashed. He didn't call us until 2 weeks later. And I was at home by myself, and I answered that call. And when I answered the call, he asked to speak to my parents, and I told him they weren't here. And I told him, like, you know, you killed my brother. And he said, no, I didn't kill your brother. The plane crash killed him. And I said, I know the plane crash killed him, but you're the one who forced him to get on the plane. Because what they don't talk about is that my brother actually walked off of that plane twice because he didn't want to get on it. Mm-hmm. But the coach made him get on it. And then also what they don't talk about is the fact that they were advised not to fly. And the coach said, no, I want my players back at the school with me. And it's like, well, just put them on the player plane then, you know? But we talked, and I said to him, you killed my brother. And he told me that he had no remorse and he would do it all over again if he had the option. And I said to him some horrible things, of course, out of anger. But I was like, what do you mean you don't have remorse? And he was like, the plane was safe. I said, the plane was safe, but the person flying it wasn't. You know, it come out that the guy had just failed his flight simulators test. You know, he could have saved all of them with one button. All of them, just with one button. And I could still have my brother here at this point, you know. And this was his friend's plane. Like, you know, those two coaches that were complaining of their back hurting and the reason why they needed to get off of that plane and get onto the other plane, that was all a load of crap. And it was still room for my brother and Nate on that plane. It was still room. They had equipment on it. All they had to do was just move the equipment. Mm-hmm. But that was his way of punishing my brother because he redshirted. That's just one of the things that he would do to him. He would do things to him that he didn't like, just so that in the name of, oh, you decided to redshirt when he was supposed to take Desmond Mason's place. And the reason why I know that's because he explained it to my brother several times in the different things that he would do to him. And as I stated, he had already expressed that he was afraid of those small propeller planes. And it was like, you didn't have to do that. So, yeah, it was some anger there. It's hard because it was an unnecessary death. Mm-hmm. It was storms, you know, it was a snowstorm in Colorado. They shouldn't have flew, and the coach forced it. So here we go.
We get to turn back the hands of time, right?
I swear I would have not came home that Christmas, and I wish if he would have came home that Christmas, he could have, I just hope he wouldn't have turned around and went back to that school. So when they offered me a free scholarship to come to that school, I couldn't do it. How could I be somewhere where he wasn't happy? Mm-hmm. how could I be somewhere where the coach did that to him, you know? And then they covered it up. Like, they didn't want the players talking to my mom and stuff. So, like, the players attempted to talk to us, and they were told not to talk to us. Because we wanted to know what happened that day. We wanted to know.
Sure.
And they wouldn't let them talk to us. But eventually, of course, we talked to them, and, you know, and we also talked with the airline, and the person that was telling them not to fly advised that my brother got off the plane twice because he didn't want to fly on it, and he was forced to be on it. So, I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's hard recalling that, I'm sure.
Oh no, I remember that part like it was yesterday. You know, I remember all of that like it was yesterday. It doesn't seem like it's been 20 years to me. To me, it's like it just happened, you know? So I've had those memories in me, and I've had to forgive, you know, for my own good, you know? It's like, yeah, I know there was like the huge lawsuit and everything, but none of that matters to me. You know, I just wanted my brother, and none of it mattered to my mom. My mom changed after that. She was never the same again, you know? So I don't want to ever know what it feels like to lose a child, because I watched her decline over the years, like her health and everything. She just changed. And she tried to be there for me, you know, but she was hurting me, and you can tell, you know. Even some of the things they asked in court, they wanted to try and make it seem like we weren't as close of a family. Like, they couldn't believe that my brother called home every day. They asked my mom to show phone records. And my mom was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, he called home every day and several times a day. Like, we talked to him like that. When I say that was my best friend, that was my best friend, you know? So, like, even when I was living in Texas with my sister, he called me several times a day, and she would get mad, and she'd be like, "He didn't call me as much when you weren't here," but he was my best friend. So we talked to him all the time, you know? So it's hard. It's hard losing someone that means so much, you know? He was like a huge piece of me, you know? So.
And how about your father, his father?
He's definitely changed for sure too. My dad has always been a person that was kind of hard on us, you know, but even him, like, I had never seen him cry before, and he cried, you know. And my grandmother, even, when I say she's the matriarch of the family, she definitely was. She kept everybody spiritually glued, you know, and everything like that. And I've never seen a weak moment in her at all. And she cried, you know. So yeah, it affected all of us. It just changed all of our, you know. How often do you hear, "Oh, someone died of a plane crash"? You know, it's just not. He was so young. He was only 21, you know, and he's missed. I will tell you that for certain. My brother and I, we talk about him often. and we laugh and joke about some of the things he's done and said, you know. He was just that guy that he just always kept everything bright, you know. He made everything feel better, if that makes sense. I was a very misunderstood kid. You know, I was kind of weird. You know, I was into my books, and I was like a little computer geek, I guess you could say. And he was one of those guys that he just made me feel understood. You know, he made me feel like I belong. Because I struggled with depression a lot as a kid. So it's like, if I could just say, like, when I would talk to him and different things of that sort, he just brightened my life. Like, he made things easier, you know? He was just a good guy. He's a good guy.
Well, when they were designing the monument, the memorial for them, they included an inscription.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about who decided on that and the meaning behind it for you guys?
Are you talking about in Colorado?
Well, the one in the arena, I think maybe they say the same thing.
Oh, okay.
I think they say the same thing.
I know all the older people decided that, like my mom, my dad, and my older brothers and siblings, they all decided that, what would it say. I guess they took a piece of it from my grandmother, my mom, and dad, and just, they all came up with something to say. I haven't seen it yet. I can't bring myself to do it.
The inscription is one of my favorite. If you have a favorite, it was one of my favorites because it's addressed to him. You know, it's Danny.
You're frozen.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Do you have any idea what it says? I mean, I've got it written down. If you want me to read it to you, or if you don't want to, I don't have to.
I have a picture of it, but I don't have it right here next to me. So if you want to read it, you can.
Okay, just a minute. It was one of the few that's actually addressed to him. It says, Danny, your presence will always be felt. God gave you to us for 21 precious years. We thank him. Our son, brother, grandson, cousin, uncle, and nephew, you are greatly missed, your loving family.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much sums it up very well, don't you?
Yeah, he was, like I said, he was the light.
Well, would be hard to come up with what to put on something in 30 some short words that's going to be there forever, you know, introducing people, you know, 20 years even from now, you know, we'll see that and get an idea that, yes, he was somebody, you know?
Yeah, he definitely was. I can't put into words what he meant to me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
He was, he just meant so much to me.
Do you have something of his that you're treasured? One or two items that you've held on to and just can't part with that was his?
Yeah. His high school class ring. I also have his Big Ten ring. When I was younger, I used to wear his high school class ring around my neck. And I would swear that whenever I was doing something that I shouldn't do, it would heat up. And I'm like, oh, it's hot. Like he was telling me, don't do that. But I would wear it. I wouldn't take it off. I don't think I took that thing off for like 3 or 4 years. The chain is all like starting to rust and everything. And I had to like take it off because of that. But yeah. And then I keep this letter that he wrote me. he wrote me a letter right before he died, and he had sent home some money that he wanted me to go and get him his favorite pair of pants called Jabos. And he was like, I want you to go and get me some Jabos. And I was like, okay. So he sent home like $700 and was like, I want you to go shopping. I want you to get you something as well. And the letter like was him being himself, just goofy and poking fun at me and everything else. So I keep it in my jewelry box. And sometimes I take it out and read it, just when I'm really needing to hear from him. And it's kind of the same thing that I do with my mom too. I have a voicemail where she called me, and I'll just re-listen to it sometimes when I feel like I'm forgetting her voice. So those are like my reminders of them. They keep me grounded, I guess.
That was my next question too. Is there something like if you're a certain song or a food or something that instantly reminds you of him?
So he loved olives. And so on his birthday, every year I'll get a jar of olives and eat olives for his birthday. Sometimes I'll go up to Niagara Falls because that was one of his favorite places.
Black olives or green olives?
Green.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he also he would do this thing where he would I would say one of his favorite movies was Money Talks and Friday. So I'll watch that sometimes and I'll remember that he would do some of Chris Tucker's like impersonations sometimes. So I definitely would watch that sometimes because of him. And then the song that always gets me is I'll See You Someday by what is the name of that song? It's Puff Daddy and a few other people singing, and it's like a goodbye song almost. So I listen to that too. Yeah. He was one of the best. It was one of those good people that we lose, and it's like, man, I wish I could get that person back. That's how it was. It's hard.
Does OSU having these annual recognitions or anniversary recognitions, does that help or not help?
It's not necessarily a part of my life, so
Does it matter?
It doesn't affect me in any kind of way. I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate them for trying to keep it going. I know that it's not the school fault that he's gone. It's definitely the coach's fault. But I think the coach himself dealt with a lot himself over the years, because I told him, I was like, this is going to haunt you for the rest of your life. And it's evident that it did. He dealt with his own demons, So it's just one of those things where it's like it doesn't affect me to see that. Because it's not a part of my life, but
So, and being in Detroit, it'd be hard to participate in like the Remember the Run, Remember the 10 run.
Yeah, it's not
something hard.
Yeah, so it's not something they sent me a whole bunch of stuff and I gave it out to my family members, but.
And then they retired the number.
Yes.
The number 3.
Mm-hmm. And his junior college that he went to retired his number as well.
Okay.
And they did something at the high school as well for him, but that high school's closed down now. So, yeah.
And he had various nicknames. You were saying Dlaw?
Yeah, Law was his high school nickname. Dlaw was another one. Then ours was always Danny. Um,
Dan the man?
yeah, yeah, I know they called him Dan up at the school. But yeah, that was my mom and I called him. We had a special name for him. He was called Band. I won't say that full meaning, but yeah,
Spelled how?
BAND, because he was just bad. It was like he was always being. When I say bad, it wasn't like he was out terrorizing the world or nothing, but he would terrorize us with all his stupid stuff.
Mischievous more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what was his favorite meal? His favorite food?
Fried chicken.
That his mother made or someone else?
Yes, that is a mom made. Oh gosh, it was a going joke where my even like my brother that's here right now, he said that they had met in elementary, and my brother offered him some apple pie, and that's how they bonded. He was always giving food out. My mom would go shopping, and then he would like give food away. And my mom like, what just happened to all my lemons? He gave the lemons out, or she fried some chicken, and next thing you know, he'd be outside eating the chicken, teasing the neighborhood kids like, my mom made chicken. He was just a goofball, but he loved his, oh gosh, give him some of my mom's fried chicken, it was over.
It's over. Was there a basketball court close to your house?
Yes. They also would play in the street, though. They would play basketball in the street. But then they would go to 1300 Beaubien a lot. They were constantly shooting ball. If there was a basketball rim anywhere, they would find it and they would play.
Was he tall enough to dunk? I guess he could dunk, couldn't he? He could dunk. Yeah. I should remember that. I watched him play too.
They were definitely tall enough. He would play.
Did you ever play against him just for fun?
Oh gosh, I had no basketball skills whatsoever. But yes, I would play against him sometime. I would play against him. Sorry, my brother is getting ready to leave, so I was just sending him a message. I would play against him sometimes. We would throw the ball. We would play football sometimes. My older brother, Austin, he would take him out to Selfridge Air Force Base because he was in the Army as well. So we would go out to Selfridge Air Force Base and shoot basketball and stuff. And I would we would make a day out of it. And I would just sit and watch them play basketball and just have fun with them like that.
Be the one that retrieves it.
Yeah. But I had no skills whatsoever. I remember when I went to his high school, they were like, "Are you going to join the basketball team?" I'm like, "No, that was a special." My brother was special. I do not have those skills.
Well, where did he get them, do you think? Did your dad have him or no? Just special all around then.
Yeah. He was just a craft that he honed in on and worked on over the years.
Would he go shoot constantly, like 100 shots, that type of thing?
Yeah, they would do that type of stuff to make sure. They would always try and make sure they shoot with the opposite hand, whatever, like he was right-handed, so he would shoot with the left hand. Dribbling with the left hand, they had to make sure that they could dribble with both hands, they could shoot with both hands. Oh my gosh, we had a little rim up in our bedroom, and all you would just hear him doing like this, and you would hear the ball hitting the rim and going in and all that stuff just constantly. And I'm like, "Will you put that down? We're supposed to be asleep." Like my mom would come in and say, "It's time to go to bed." and he would just still be shooting that ball, or just, yeah, basketball was everything to him.
Mm.
It was.
He constantly had to have a new one.
Yes. And then I used to tell him, I'm like, it's not fair. You get all the cool stuff because you're a basketball player. Like, my mom would get him the Jordans and stuff, and I'm like, well, where are my Jordans? So yeah, oh gosh, everything basketball. He went to like the Steve Fisher camp at U of M. And I remember us driving up to drop him off in Ann Arbor. Just, that was like a yearly thing for him and my brother that's here now. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you watch any basketball now yourself now?
I do. It was hard to watch I still can't watch college basketball because I'll just get like in a funk, you know, because they remind me of him. So seeing like basketball players at that age is kind of hard.
Did he have any rituals or superstitions that he'd have to do before every game, or something like that?
No, not really. No, not really. I guess calling me.
I had read that he would tug on his ear.
Oh, that was his way of saying hello to my mom. Yeah.
I thought that was sweet.
Yeah, my son, when he's out on the field, he does like this, and that's like peace over his heart, and that's like his way of giving me like a heads up too. So yeah, he loved my mom. I know right before he died, he had got my mom's name tattooed on his chest, and so that was hard for my mom. My son actually just got my name tattooed going up his arm like this, and it's a big flower right there. So it's like I see a lot of similarities between them, and my son looks so much like him. Sometimes it's hard to watch him, you know, because I'll be looking at my son and I'm just thinking of my brother. Mm-hmm. Like the last time he was home, he had grew his hair out, and he wanted me to put these little tiny rubber bands in his hair. And it was just looking like little tiny sticks of hair all over his head. Looked like he had little balls all over his head. But he thought that was the funniest thing ever. And he kept them in for a whole week. And I was like, what is wrong? Can you take that out of your hair? Oh, gosh. He was a character. I can't even, it was so many memories, so many of us just having fun. I remember we were riding in the car, and I was having some self-esteem issues because I, was dealing with some weight and things. And he was like, this is when he first left to go to Mott. He came home. And he was like, oh, I just want to let you know, like, you're cute with your little ugly self. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, how can I be cute and ugly? Which one is it? He was like, don't ever tell anyone I told you this, but you're cute. And I'm like, well, thanks. Just so much stuff. We'd be riding in the car, and he would just turn the music down all of a sudden. He's like, Shy. I'm like, what? And I'm thinking we're about to have a serious conversation or something. He's like, I look good, don't I? No, like, what? He's just a goofball. I just love him. I love him so much. It's indescribable how wonderful he was. He was a good big brother.
And I'm assuming you share some of these stories with his niece and nephews and
yes,
others in the next generation.
Oh yes, everyone knows what he meant to me. Mm-hmm. Like even my stepchildren, they're like, they just know. It's like, that was my brother. No one could take that away, mm-hmm. and no one would even be able to change it if they tried. Yeah. They couldn't tell me something bad about him because it would be like, no. No, I know better because I knew his heart. He was just a good person, you know? It's one of those things where it seems like, I don't know if you ever notice, like sometimes some of the good people that we lose and we're like, why him? You know? I definitely said that a lot. Like, God, why him? But then it's like, you know, you can't question God because whatever it is that, whatever reason for it, it was for a reason, you know? And I know one thing, at the school now, like you can't put players on a plane outside of what the team plane and stuff like that. So that's great. You know, and I miss him, but it's, you know, I know it was all for a reason, and I know he's in a better place, you know, and I know my mom is happy to see him in heaven, you know, so it's yeah.
And that image of him, he'll always be young.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, his smile. Oh,
Yep.
oh gosh, I'll always remember his smile. He's just a good guy. I can't say it any different. He was just an overall good guy.
Would he have to approve your boyfriends?
Oh man, I wasn't allowed to have them.
Okay.
He told me I was not allowed. And so I was like, okay. I really didn't date anyone until after he died, really. It was just, he was protective. And I ended up finding out that like someone had said something about me or something one time when he was home, and I guess he got into a fight with the person because he was like, you're not going to talk about my sister. You know, like he was very protective, you know. I was his baby, and honestly, quite honestly, he was mine. So, like, I remember when he played at Cobo Hall, and he fell on his tailbone because someone, like, he went up for a layup, and the person, like, caught his foot with his shoulder, and he fell on his tailbone. Oh, man, I was so mad. Like, I ran, like, you don't want to do that to not my brother, you know. But that's just how he was, like, he was my baby, you know. He was just, the way, and my brother that's here now, he always laughs at me because he's like, you trying to act like you the oldest. And I'm like, well, you guys were my kids, you know, growing up. And it's like, that's just how I always see them. Like, even now, like, my brother here, he's 6'7", 6'8", and a big guy. But to me, I always see the teenager, you know, I always see the little Brian, you know. So I've always looked at him and Danny as like, they were like my kids or something. I was very protective over them. No one could say anything about them. They were just, you know, I was just always so close to them. So, and it's funny because it carried on even with his friend Brian all these years, you know, and 20 years down the line, after his death, we're still friends, and, you know, he still comes home and visits me and everything like that. So it's like, you know, it's a real family, you know.
Mm-hmm. Good connections.
Yes.
Tight knit.
Oh yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot. Is there anything that I've not thought to ask you that we need to cover?
Not that I can think of.
Did he learn how to drive pretty easily?
Oh yeah, he actually taught me how to drive.
Okay.
Some say I drive a little crazy, but no, he was a little speeder. So I do. My husband called me Leadfoot Lucy, but I'm like, my brother taught me how to drive. You know, he could get us from one point to the next. So it could be a 30-minute drive, but we'll get there in 10. You know. So it's funny now because my husband was like, well, he got me a Genesis G70, and he's like, okay, this was a mistake because you and that foot. And I don't mean to speak, but it's like what that means. You know, I'm not like breaking laws and getting tickets or anything, but he definitely taught me how to drive.
Okay.
Yeah, he used to have this dance he would do in the car. It was the funniest ever. He would make up different things, like if he was rolling down the window, so he would act like he's rolling down the window, and he would be, you know, like a manual roll down, and then he would say, oh, I see someone, and he would do like this, and then he's driving the wheel, and he goes, so it's like all that stuff. I'll do it to my son now when we're in the car, and he'd be like laughing at me. But I remember so much, even the sound he used to make. He used to make a sucking sound with his teeth, like when he was brushing his hair. So like sometimes I'll hear that sound, like I heard my son doing it, and I just started laughing. And I said, oh my gosh, you're doing what your uncle used to do. And so he, like, you know, brushing his hair, and all you hear. So yeah, it's all those memories just swirling around up there in my head.
Well, we'll close if you want.
Okay.
I've got two things. How do you want Dan to be remembered? How do you want others to remember him?
Just for being an amazing person that he was. He was helpful, loving, funny, charismatic, joyful. He loved God, you know. He was just an overall good person, you know, and I want people to remember that about him. I want people to know that we've lost a great soul for this world. I honestly feel like he would have made a difference in this world with his energy. His energy was just amazing. Like if you ever hear any stories of him, it's always going to be good stories, you know. We had George Gervin. I had seen him in high school, and he was like, I follow your brother, you know. And he's like, tell your brother to keep up the good work, you know. And he was like, I hear he's even a better person than he is a player. And it's like, you know, I want people to know that about him.
Okay.
And then he came from an amazing family. He came from an amazing woman. My mom was an amazing person. So just overall, our family, we're a loving family, you know. I know that when like all the lawsuits and everything is going through, they didn't believe that, but it is true. There's nothing else I could say about it, you know. So I would just say, especially with all the racial things that's going on right now, and a lot of people, they look at Black people and they say, well, there's no way they could be this and there's no way they could be that. We lost a really great Black guy, you know. And what's so funny is there's more people like him. There's more Black people like him. So I think that he would have made a difference, you know. I think if he was here right now, and his dreams and aspirations that he had for his community, it would have been amazing. You know, him and his friend both wanted to mentor people in our community, you know, bring up these young kids and show them the right way to do things and stuff like that. And I really think that he would have made a difference. So I want people to remember that about him.
Okay. Well, I remember him playing, and my husband remembers him as a very good kid too. So two of us do, at least here in Oklahoma. Yeah. Okay. And my son too. My son liked basketball, so he watched him too.
Oh, that's awesome.
I want to close then with, do you remember the poem that Andre read during the memorial service?
No.
That called "I'm Free."
No.
There was one line in it that I think that it's a good way for us to end today.
Okay.
And it was, "If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy." And that's what you have done today. You have filled that void with joys you have of him, memories of him. So we appreciate you talking to us.
I appreciate you all for doing this. It's great.
Yeah, it's been. I have enjoyed hearing stories about him, and I'm sure you could probably tell us some off record that you not want necessarily recorded.
Oh yes.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing, Dan, with us today, and we'll close off.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
I'm going to stop the recording.
All right.